From the Funkmaster taking shots at Dana White for not giving him credit, to the athlete accusing the promoter of playing favorites in the UFC. Here's the Dana White versus Aljamain Sterling feud explained. As it turns out, the bantamweight champion isn't seeing eye to eye with the UFC president. White's recent words have the Funkmaster scratching his head. Now, this isn't your usual two fighters taking shots at each other to hype up a fight feud. The UFC president publicly calling out his champions is serious, and Aljamain is pissed. He said on a recent episode of the Weekly Scraps, "You put me in this situation, and you make it sound as if you want me to be the bad guy." Yep, he isn't up for White's banter. The athlete much rather have the UFC promoter discuss fights behind closed doors than call him out publicly. The Long Island native went on about how he's done everything the UFC has asked him to, going through training camps with torn biceps, beating former champion Petr Yan, knocking out TJ Dillashaw, taking down Henry Cejudo with a partially torn tendon, you name it. This guy has done a lot. So a little credit from Dana's side would have been appreciated, right? Sterling became the first bantamweight champion in the promotion's history to successfully defend the title 3 times. It doesn't sit right with him or his fans that Dana's still doubting him. The UFC president said that Sterling was one of those guys who can't get out of his own way. And this is what triggered the bantamweight champion. It doesn't end here. Sterling is in White's bad books now. It isn't the best look on a fighter. Trust me, you don't want bad blood with White. He's the man who runs the sport. White was quick to slam back at Sterling. He told Fansided that he wasn't the one saying, "if my body holds up," while promoting fights. That was clearly a shot at the Funkmaster, who isn't too sure about his fight at UFC 292. The champion said he was worried about the upcoming bout because of his lingering injuries. But can you really blame him though? The athlete's got a lot of things wrong with him. Yep, banged up legs and torn biceps and all. White said if Aljamain wasn't ready to fight again, he could have just said no. Dana was more than happy to have someone else fight for the interim title. Turns out he isn't trying to villainize the athlete. These two can't seem to be on the same page. Yeah, because here's the thing. Aljamain said his upcoming bout with Sean O'Malley was announced without him having any say in it. The UFC announced a title defense fight between the Funkmaster and Suga at UFC 292 on 19th of August 2023. Fans have been waiting for this one for way too long, and it's making a lot of buzz in the fight world. But turns out White forgot to make a call. A very important one. Sterling was willing to step into the octagon with O'Malley in September, but Dana did some tweaks and scheduled it for August instead. The bad part is that he didn't consult Sterling at all. You'd expect him to at least talk to the defending champion before making the fight of the night, right? But nothing's stopping Sterling from stepping into the cage and putting on one hell of a fight for fans. The 33-year-old tweeted, "But once again, I'll show up and piss in everyone's Cheerios. Again, cheers." He's ready to fight, but it was obvious that the athlete would have appreciated some time. I mean, I don't think anyone would be happy with making a 3-month turnaround. The Funkmaster is fresh off a title defense against Henry Cejudo at UFC 288. Yep, he stepped into the octagon with Triple C in May 2023 and held onto his title successfully. Cejudo returned to the cage after a 3-year layoff, so fans did see that one coming. The matchup was interesting on paper, and it really played it out that way from the offset. Triple C scored an early takedown with ease, but wasn't able to go far from there. The fight was extremely competitive and kept fans on their toes through it all. Sterling won by split decision, so there was no humiliating loss for Cejudo. Yeah, that would have looked bad on his record, you know. You can't lose your comeback bout in a humiliating fashion. Cejudo's often called the greatest combat athlete of all time, and a win over him added a major bullet point to Sterling's resume. The Funkmaster trained for this one while having a bicep tear, so it definitely wasn't easy for him. But hey, he still came through. Gotta give him points for that. Too bad he still can't rest. The champion has O'Malley to take down, so he got to return to training ASAP. You know how much he would have loved some time off. Sterling has been wanting to take a break since November 2022. For someone who's been fighting non-stop since April 2022, Sterling is doing way more than he bargained for. He just can't seem to catch a break, can he? Before closing the deal on his fight with Cejudo, the bantamweight champion expressed that he wanted some time off. We all know his wish wasn't granted to him. The athlete had 2 5-round training camps in 2022 and multiple injuries. But what can I say? He's the champion, and there's a long list of fighters wanting to dethrone him. Sean shared his take on why Sterling wanted a break. On an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, O'Malley said that Sterling had put on a lot of weight. Yep, Funkmaster's foe thinks he needed time off to cut down on some of those calories. Now, it could just be the athlete taking shots at his rival, right? Sterling's been very open about his whole weight-cutting process, and he's never failed to make weight for his fights. Hey, O'Malley, chill out. Maybe the guy just wants a break. I don't know about you, but I don't get why everyone's making a fuss out of him wanting to stay off the canvas for a bit. White knows where the PPVs are at, so he keeps booking him. Plus, I think it's safe to assume White and Sterling fail to see eye to eye quite a lot. Yeah, this isn't the first time these two have had bad blood. Sterling's been the UFC bantamweight champion for over 2 years now, so it's fair to call him one of White's top fighters. But the athlete still can't get things on his own terms. And White's got something against him. Remember when Sterling stepped into the octagon to defend his title against Jan at UFC 273? The Funkmaster won by split decision, and you know he won that one fair and square. But White thought the judges blew it by handing victory to Sterling. Tell me Dana White hates a fighter without telling me he hates him. The UFC president was hoping for a different outcome. He said, "I had it 3-2 the other way. I don't know how you guys scored it. I guess it's all in how you score that first round." There's definitely some beef here. White's got a lot on his plate, so he doesn't really have time to feud with his fighters. But when he does, you gotta know it's serious. And this one's more deeply rooted than we thought. Hear me out. White plays favorites when it comes to UFC fighters. He's a promoter after all, so at the end of the day, he loves the ones who bring more to his promotion. And I'm not the one saying it. Take it from Sterling himself, who wished he was treated more like Conor McGregor. Yep, you heard that right. If White has one favorite athlete in the UFC, it's definitely the Irishman. I mean, do I even have to go on about this? McGregor is undeniably one of the best fighters in UFC history. He's also one of the top-paid athletes in the world, so you can't really blame White for loving him, can you? He's one to hype up fights and bring in all the PPVs. Plus, the Notorious is set to make his comeback in the final quarter of 2023. Yep, he hasn't graced an octagon since his gruesome injury at UFC 264 in July 2021. So his comeback has been the hot topic of the fight world. The Funkmaster wants White to give him the same treatment as Conor. I mean, all the fighters do. Sterling went in depth about his relationship with White on his YouTube channel. The athlete said they have a good relationship behind the scenes, but the UFC president never gives him a fair shake in the press because he's not McGregor. The bantamweight champion even asked if he could be awesome, the Mystic Mac. I say it's time fans start giving Sterling the respect he deserves. Defending the title for 2 years and counting? That's impressive, and you know it. So there you have it, Fight World. From the Funkmaster accusing the promoter of playing favorites in the UFC, to the athlete taking shots at Dana White for not giving him credit. This was the Dana White versus Aljamain Sterling feud explained.